Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivemy.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
Dramatic pause. You're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of superhero television or film. And this week on the podcast, we are talking about the new Amazon Prime original, Invincible.
And I wish, this is one of the only times I wish we didn't have an audio podcast, because I would like the title card to shoot up right now.
Ooh, yeah.
If you're listening at home, and you are, obviously.
Then I would have to not say it.
I know, but
Yeah.
we were dramatic pausing, but then I hope you pictured the title card, everyone.
Ooh.
I hope you pictured it.
Yeah, it's tough to do in a visual medium.
I can't say just title card.
Yeah.
I guess we could.
I guess we could. We could put it out as like a video on Twitter or something.
Okay.
Like a promo for like this week we're talking, and then just like
Video card.
title card. We could put that up there.
Nailed it.
That'll help.
Yeah, we're doing the
will
Amazon.
It? We'll see.
That's how comedy works.
Will that help? Who knows? But yes, we're talking about Invincible. We're going to be talking about episodes 1 to 5. So episode 1 up to and including episode 5, which is what's available at the time of recording of this podcast. And spoiler warning then for episodes 1 to 5. Once we get into the spoiler section, that is, whenever we talk about a new property, we always give a spoiler-free review at the beginning for those of you who might be on the fence or are unsure about watching it. You're going to get a spoiler-free review.
We're going to let you know if you should watch Invincible kind of now-ish.
Now's the time for the spoiler-free review.
Now's the time.
Let's do a quick spoiler-free review. Diana, first of all, do you like it?
I do like it, but I only like it. I don't love it. I enjoy watching it, but I'm not compelled by it. Like it's got a weird tone to it that I just can't put my finger on. The way I've been describing this show in my head is it's the boys meets the Tick, and they're really landing the boys, and they won't go all in on the Tick. Is kind of where I'm at on this show. It's interesting, and I really like pretty much every character except the main character, who I find very boring. I find Mark not compelling at all. And
the titular Invincible.
The titular Invincible Mark. I don't find him compelling. And every other side character, I'm like, I feel like you have more going on and more interesting personality. Like, literally everyone. Like, Adam Eve, Rexplode, like, his dad. Everyone else is, like, I'm, like, compelled. The Cecil and everybody. But I'm just like, Mark, you're kind of nothing. So I'm like... That's my problem with the show. I really like when it gets violent and it's cool, and some of the comedy is really landing, and I am enjoying watching it, but I am not compelled by the titular Invincible. That's where I'm landing. Andrew, what about you?
I think that this is terrifically made, and it's just not for Andrews.
Okay.
Not for Andrews. It's something that our friend group says, inspired by our friend Kat Angus on I Hate It But I Love It, who might have been inspired by somebody else, but she would say often things are just not for Kat. And it's not to say that they're bad or that they're good. They're just not for her. And that's kind of become a thing in our friend group where things are just not for my name. Because sometimes if you're like, I don't like this, other people will get defensive or try to explain why you should like it. This is something that's just not for Andrew, but I think it's actually incredible. Like, I think this is very well made, top to bottom. It's incredible performances. I think it's very well written. I think it's visually really dynamic and fun and great animation, and the colors pop and everything looks good, feels good, sounds good, well performed, well written, and I just don't really want to watch it. And it's more of a me thing. I'm putting that on me than the show. And one thing I think we'll get into in the spoiler section is that I'll put it a little bit on the moment in time that it's come out, that I don't think we need this show right now. I feel like it does something that we've already had done a couple different times. So I really don't feel that it's filling a void in media at the moment. But it is very well executed and really well done. And maybe my biggest criticism would be that it at times feels a little soulless. Like it doesn't feel like art. It feels like well executed tradesmanship, but there are times where it just doesn't feel like art.
Okay, I can get behind this, and I feel this. I feel like I didn't use the saying not for Diana's, but I kind of felt the same way the 2 Godzilla weeks we had. Like, I'm like, I don't think Godzilla movies are for Diana. So either way, like, I'm not going to super enjoy them. And I'm not going to give this a not for Diana's, because I think this is Boys meets Tick meets Spider-Man. All things I pretty much enjoy quite a bit, and I still don't really love it. So I'm like, I think this could be for Diana's, but it's just missing some kind of tonal shift.
Ah, okay.
That like isn't quite landing. Because I think all the dark stuff with the dad is really cool. But then I was like, the rest I'm like,
Even for,
blah.
I feel like there is, if this show came out maybe 10 years ago,
Oh, groundbreaking 10 years ago.
even 5 years ago, it might not be as groundbreaking, but even 5 years ago, it would be like, holy shit, you have to watch this show. And that's what I mean about like, it's just a little too late. It is just a tiny bit.
When the comic book came out.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah,
it might
when the
just be a
comic book
little-
came out, this was the right story to do.
Yeah, it
And
might be a little late for when the comic to
Yeah.
the adaptation came out.
because it's a little gritty, it's a little bleak at times, and I just don't need that in my watching repertoire at the moment. But really well done, really well executed show, and
Incredibly well executed. The cast. Like, jeez.
phenomenal cast.
Oh my goodness.
There's not a flaw in the bunch.
Every single character, no matter how small, is like an A-list actor / voice celebrity.
Oops, all bangers.
Oops, all bangers.
Oops, all bangers. Yeah, so I would say that like my final verdict on this for the spoiler-free review would be that I think it's good if you can handle a little bleakness or a little like grim grittiness in your life. It's definitely worth it. I think it's at least worth episode 1. And after the ending of episode 1, if it doesn't grab you, then this show's not for you.
I will 100% agree. Yeah, if you like superhero stuff and superhero cartoons and The Boys or The Tick, like try at least episode 1. You're not gonna. You can walk away pretty easily if it's not for you, but like if you're compelled, you'll be happy with what you get.
Yeah,
It's a well-made show.
Yeah, and the next 4 episodes after 1, they don't really change or elevate or redefine what the show is. 1, I think, is a very good barometer of like this is exactly what this show is, top to bottom.
Yeah.
And can it be spoiled?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's why we had a spoiler-free section, and we needed it. This show can be spoiled, and I feel like way bigger spoilers are coming.
I definitely feel
There's
like
twists coming.
Yeah. This show
They're
is
in the air.
Yeah, this show is a bit of a mystery novel. As much as it is a superhero story, it's also a bit of like a detective mystery story as well.
So be careful if you haven't watched it yet.
Yes, because there will be spoilers. And before we get into the spoiler-filled section, we need to thank our wonderful sponsor of today's episode. You know them and love them. It's tpublic.com.
It's tpublic.com with all the t-shirts you need for your body. And the designs on those t-shirts, let me tell you,
Tell me.
made by indie artists who are getting a fair commission for their work.
You'll love to hear it.
You love to hear it. You love to wear it. You love to buy it at tpublic.com.
They make fantastic stuff. It's all well priced. It's well made. It's shipped right to your doorstep. And don't let the name fool you. It's not just t-shirts. You can also get long sleeves, hoodies, sweaters, zip-ups, all kinds of options. You can also get things like face masks. You can get the cell phone cases or laptop cases if you're not in the market for clothing. You can also get pillowcases, wall art, stickers, decals, all kinds of cool options. All of it, when you find the design that you like, you'll be able to choose from a bunch of different options.
It's so amazing how many things you get. And designs that you will only find on tpublic.com. You're not finding these other places.
No, because they're made by an independent artist, they'll double up on references. Things like
my shirt is called Invincible Choose Your Hero, and it's all the Invincible characters in like 8-bit video game fonts. So you got Invincible, you got Omni-Man, you got Adam Eve, you got Robot. It just says press start.
I think it's kind of like
cute.
a Mega Man block breakdown is the 8-bit style.
Mega Man? I see Mario, but
I'm gonna say Mega Man,
You're
but
gonna
like
say Mega?
it's like an 8-bit style.
it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. I like it. And I'm liking the one Mutant Yelling, which is just a really fun mashup. Weapon X 5203 is the artist who made this. It's called Mutant Yelling, and it is Gene holding Cyclops who's yelling and pointing. And then it's basically the web meme of like the yelling and pointing juxtaposed with like the cat at the dinner table, but the cat is Wolverine. It's like a 2-panel comic. So I like this because it's a double up. It's a reference to a meme. It's something that wouldn't be made if it weren't for this independent artist. And it tells a story. It's a 2-panel comic on a shirt. That's like a fun
I feel
reference.
like I read an entire issue of X-Men.
Yeah.
And loved it.
I love it very much. And you will love it too. Oh, you'll love that. either the designs we mentioned, any of the ones we previously mentioned on the podcast, other ones we've never mentioned and just think are cool and recommend, you'll find them in our storefront, which is over at teepublic.fromsuperheroes.com. That is TEE public.fromsuperheroes.com. And when you shop through that link, whether you get something from our store, if you just search around the site as a whole, when you get something there, you not only support the artist who designed it, but you also directly support this podcast as well. So teepublic.fromsuperheroes.com. And thank you, TeePublic, for your support.
Thanks, TeePublic. You're great.
Terrific. And now let's get into the spoiler-filled section. Let's talk more about Invincible.
Spoilies.
All right, so we have seen all of Invincible. The dad is insane, is the big spoiler. Omni-Man is out of his fucking mind. I do not know what's going on with that busted dude.
That or he's not insane and he's just evil but sane. You can be evil but sane. You can just be an asshole.
You can be evil but sane. Yeah, it's uncertain
It's
if he's
unclear.
psychopathic or sociopathic or being mind controlled or having some kind of
like Manchurian Candidate, Winter Soldier thing going
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know I did it, but I think he knows he did it.
I think he knows he did it. I don't think he's fully in control of his faculties,
I
though.
think he is.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think he
okay.
was fully on board there. So that's
You think he's plotted it out?
yeah.
Okay, well, this is interesting. So we will say, first of all,
We didn't read the comics.
we have not. This is one of the rare things we cover on the podcast where we're not familiar with the source material. So I don't know if it has been revealed in the comic book chronology. I don't know if there's a straightforward answer to this that we just don't know, and I'm fine with that. I'm not going to look it up. I don't want to spoil it for myself if it is out there, but wild guesses. So episode 1, it ends. Omni-Man murders the whole Guardians of the Globe, their Justice League parable.
May I just say, obituaried.
Wow, body
Wrecked.
bags, brutal.
Wow. Yeah.
brutal.
Instantly the boys.
Yes.
So brutal. Like kills I've never seen. Like things you can only do in animation, kind of. Like
Yeah,
just
animation in video games.
yeah, just like Mortal Kombat fatalities for every single member of the Guardians of the Globe.
Yeah.
They're all toast.
Yeah, like stuff that I legitimately had only seen in like Injustice, the video game, or the Mortal Kombat but Justice League video game. So absolutely brutally body bag obituaries, all of these people. I think that he is losing control or faculty of his own mind to a certain degree. I don't know why. I don't know if it has something to do with like, I posited some loose theories of like, maybe it's once your child gets powers, you start losing your mind or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what's inciting it, but when he gets mad at his wife and when he gets mad at his son, afterwards, when he catches himself, he doesn't seem to be catching himself in a way where it's like, oops, I'm losing my cover. He seems to catch himself like he's almost confused that he snapped just now. So like the first few times he snaps on his family, and they're light snaps to be
They're
like,
very light. They're not like violent. They're just like, I'm a little bit rude.
yeah, they're not like him full on like killing the Guardians of the Globe. It's just him being rude to his wife or child, which presumably, and the way the story is set up, even though we're jumping in at this particular moment in time, it seems like he has never done in the past. So it doesn't feel like he's dropping his cover identity. It feels like he's actually kind of confused / like regaining control of his own mind for a second or two. And like it slips and he's regaining control of the wheel.
Oh, I disagree completely. I've actually gotten the impression that he is completely in control and he's catching himself and he's like, oh, right, I'm supposed to have emotions. Oopsie daisy. I think killing the Guardians was the first really evil thing he's done. And now it's really changed him and he's letting his cover slip a little more and more. And I feel like he's in full control of his faculties. I think he knows. I think he's knew he was going to do it, and now it's the first thing he's hidden from his family, and that's what's changing him.
Okay. See, I find it interesting that he never said anything when he murders them. Because that's a great sequence and scene where he does not answer any of their questions, doesn't respond to them, doesn't act with hate or vitriol, but also doesn't act with military precision either. It is somewhere in between out of control, but it's not emotional, but it's not a job either. Like it exists in this somewhere in between where I don't know what it is.
I will agree. The killing of the Guardians is very brainwashy. I will totally agree with that. You're right. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have any remorse. He just kind of, and like no anger, no hatred, nothing going on there. It's kind of very Winter Soldier-y. But when he goes and kills those aliens, it's quite evil and like, I'm just in this for the blood. So that didn't feel brainwashy, and that told me he can be that extreme and kill at that level. And when there's no one around to see the consequences, he just cuts free. So I think he's fully aware of what he's doing. The alien planet gave me a little bit more perspective on what I think
he did feel joy during that alien planet.
He was furious and also having a great time just wrecking that planet with no one around to see what he was doing. Because he destroyed the whole planet, not just the military.
Yeah, absolutely every last living creature on the planet. That's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about that.
But it's weird that he didn't have the same joy with the Guardians. Maybe because they were so powerful, he was like, I really got to have my game face on.
Right.
I got to go in, no banter. These guys can beat me.
Yeah. Now, I feel like it's also wild, though, to get them all in one place. Like, that
Instead
doesn't even feel like a
one.
good strategy. And he's fast enough and smart enough and strong enough to do them one by one. I don't know if there is losing your sanity a bit and then finding joy in murder. And maybe it's hard to know with where the story starts. And obviously that's by intention to keep this mystery around it. But has he ever done and felt this before? Because it does feel like it is new, and we're watching a serial killer after their first kill, but the serial killer is Superman, and they're finding more joy in it as it goes along.
Yeah, it feels like what's the James Gunn movie we watched? Not
Brightburn?
Brightburn. Yeah. He feels like an old version of the kid in Brightburn, who's just kind of like, oh, killing is fun after the first kill. Yeah, I can get behind that, but that's speculation.
Yeah,
let's talk about the show.
Sure.
Let's go on about it. I'm really sad about what I said in the non-spoiler section, that Mark, the main character, is my least favorite character. I don't dislike him, but I'm so much more interested in everyone else. And I find that so sad because I love Stephen Yeun. I think he's so great at everything. And I'm just like, Mark has no... It's weird that he has just no conflict, but he's also not super funny. But he's not like brought down by the darkness happening, but he's also not super optimistic or anything. He's just kind of like, everything's easy for Mark.
He's not an active protagonist in his own story. And I think he's
active, but he has no conflict or change. Nothing's in his way. He knew he was going to get powers. He got powers. Now he's a hero. Right. He didn't have to decide. He's not hiding it from his family. His family knows. He's from a rich family, so he can just quit his job.
He has to hide it from his girlfriend, but that's it. And otherwise has a pretty strong support system in his life helping him keep this secret and hide it, whether it's with Adam Eve or his dad and family. Everyone is kind of rooting for him.
Yeah, the government agency knows his identity too, so he can just go to the feds whenever he has a problem. He knows all the people on the Guardians of the Globe now. He's a huge support structure. And, some fights are hard, but it just never seems like he's morally or mentally struggling with anything. And everyone else does. Eve has a really interesting story about whether she wants to be a hero. Rex has anger issues. The dad and the mom are going through trust issues. And then Mark's just kind of
oblivious to a lot of it as well.
Yeah. If his character name was Oblivious, that would make more sense to me.
Yeah, because even with Adam Eve and Rex Explodes, relationship and cheating and that all going down, there are scenes where Mark catches up with Eve and just has everything told to him. He is oblivious to that as well. And I completely agree with what you're saying, and I think I didn't notice it at first. And that's partially by a successful design of the show, is that they are using, I think, this tension of us as an audience waiting for the other shoe to drop, because we know something Mark doesn't know. As an audience, we know that his father is a psychopathic, homicidal lunatic who could destroy the planet and very well might. We know that, and the character doesn't. So that does create tension, but we can also tell as an audience that that's not going to come to a head for a while. So it really just kind of means we're going on these random rides and adventures that aren't really tense, even though there should be tension. But it did deceive me. I didn't notice what you're saying until you say it, and now it seems obvious. And of course, and I agree with you, and you're right. But I didn't feel it in the moment.
Excellent. Yeah, I feel like what the show kind of was aiming for, which I like on paper, is that the dad's storyline is like a dark drama, and then Mark's in like a comedic action adventure show. But I think maybe there's not enough comedy and just not enough drama with Mark at all.
Yeah.
Or he had to be like in a super comedy. Because a lot of the things that happen to Mark are funny. And like I find them entertaining. Like fighting the guy who thinks Earth is supposed to be like, you have to test the defender, the guy who comes to fights Mark. I love the 3 alien invasion. Really clever. So he's having like clever, like half smile fun adventures, but not like, ha ha ha, this is so hilarious adventures.
Especially when I think some of the writers on this show worked for Ultimate Spider-Man, another animated TV show that we really liked. I feel like this show could be kind of peppier and work better and be what you're describing if he was a Spider-Man type. If it was just like quip, 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 he never stops talking, he never stops joking, really charming and charismatic. And he does have that Peter Parker side. Like the Mark at school is the one who gets pushed into lockers, bullied and beat up, and people don't really notice, and he's the smart kid and all this stuff. Like it is very much, even though most of what this universe is a DC Comics parable, it feels like he is very Spider-Man and should be written Spider-Man.
I agree. Yeah, he's Spider-Man with none of the difficulties. Like he's late for his girlfriend's dates, which is like very Spider-Man MJ. But whereas Peter just has to apologize, he's a rich kid, so he just shows up with presents all the time. He's like, and it's okay now. I'm like, I don't like that.
Right.
I don't really enjoy that very much.
He's got all the power in the world and all the money to fly to Japan and get the cake that she likes.
Yeah, and even Titan like calls him out on that, which I think was a very interesting episode that could have delved more into like the fact that he only does world issues and not personal issues. So yeah, I'm sad I don't like Mark more.
I can feel you there. Yeah, it wasn't a huge problem for me. I do agree. Even before you brought up these points, I do agree that all of the other characters are more interesting, but it was by just an inch for me. I didn't quite feel the chasm between him and the other characters that it seems like you're feeling. Now, for me, what makes it a not for Andrews show, or at least not for Andrews right now, is just I don't know how this got greenlit and why there was a need to make it. Because when we're comparing it to some of the other things we're comparing it to, it's a story that's been done to death. What if Superman but bad? It is your Red Sun.
It's your Brightburn.
It is your what was the other one? Unstoppable. What was the?
Oh, I didn't read it, but there's one called Unstoppable or Irredeemable.
Irredeemable, which I did like, but like your Irredeemable, your Red Sun, the James Gunn movie Brightburn. You have The Boys, and it's even more baffling to me that Amazon Prime does The Boys. So back to back, they greenlit their 2 superhero properties are the same tone and dynamic. Back to back, they're like, let's make The Boys, and now we want a cartoon one. What if we did a cartoon one that was violent and gritty, and what if Superman but bad? You've already fucking got that, Amazon Prime. So this is kind of why I'm like, even when it's executed really well, I don't know why this show got made, because it is a tone and a theme and a style and a perspective that not only have we all seen, but we saw it on the same streaming service a month ago.
Yeah, it only finished like 2 or 3 months ago. It's fresh.
Yeah.
You greenlit these right after each other. And there hasn't been a gap. Like, it's not like you canceled The Boys and now you're like, and here's Invincible, though, to fill in the gap. It's like every week you can watch a super violent superhero show if that's what you want. We got 2 whole different ones, but not all that different. I get what you're saying, and I am sad whenever the show gets very bleak, because I think the last 2 episodes especially, because like I said, I felt like originally the show was the dad stuff is bleak and dramatic, and then I almost feel like what they wanted, or at least what I wanted, was that Mark's storyline was full of hope and optimism and actually saving people. But then you get to the last 2 episodes and like he goes to Mars and he saves the astronauts, but then he accidentally dooms Mars. Like all the Martians are now dead. We get to the most recent episode where he's trying to help the little guy and it turns out Titan was using him and now he's the crime lord and he hasn't helped anyone. He's just gotten most of the team killed. So it's the optimistic parts have turned bleak now. And I'm like, oh, I don't want that. I want to feel inspired. I want to root for Mark.
Yeah.
So I wish I did. So yeah, it's too depressing.
It is, and it's a tough thing always to judge any media, whether it's TV, film, comic book, whatever the hell it is that's going on. It's a tough thing to judge it based on the moment that it comes out, because it is to a certain degree unfair to the art. And to another degree, very fair to the art, to be like, you need to know your moment. And there are artistic creations that are more meaningful because of the moment and time that they came out with. So obviously, vice versa can be true. And I really do think that this is executed phenomenally. And a little bit earlier in time, this is a pivotal, more talked about piece of art. But I don't think I'll continue to watch this season, because I just don't need more of this same feeling in my life. It's a feeling that I barely wanted in my life when I watched the first episode of The Boys. But at least at that time, I wasn't seeing anything else relatively around that had that same tone. So I was like, I don't really like how this is making me feel. I want a more optimistic energy, but I'll watch a bit of The Boys because it's different. Now, it's still a tone that I don't want. I want more optimistic and playful in my life right now, and it's something that's already been done. So it's tough. It's tough because it is very well-made art, and I don't want to judge it by the moment, but it's the moment it's in.
But you're also very fair in that you have very clearly stated, just not for Andrews. Like, it's well done. If you want a bleak superhero action adventure, here you go, with a little bit of comedy every now and then. But like maybe to get to some positives.
Sure.
I would say literally every character other than Mark is so captivating, like so interesting from the get-go. Like the powers, the backstories, the names. I love all of these. Adam, Eve, cool. You do atomic level stuff. Duplicate, and your name's Kate. Like all of these are so clever.
Really fun, playful world building where you were right to compare it to The Tick before, where it doesn't quite go on the nose or that wink and nudge towards the audience, but it is sometimes like just so clever that it floors you a little bit.
Rexplode made me laugh for like 2 minutes. And not just because it was Jason Mantzoukas, but dear God, it's also Jason Mantzoukas, that brilliant bastard.
Wonderful character name, perfect casting. Perfect casting. They sometimes make him too much of a dick that it gets a little rough, but in terms of like the writing of the character, but just so clever, so funny. So
clever and funny. Jason Mantzoukas is absolutely crushing it. I never believe for a second he is about 17 years old, but but I think that's a problem through most of the show. Also, Monster Girl, like every single character is like a unique superhero, which is so weird because the Justice League were just knockoffs. The Guardians of the Globe were just knockoffs of the Justice League. But then I find every other character to be almost completely original and new, even when they are knockoffs. Like Rexplode is basically just Gambit's powers, but not Gambit's personality at all.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. I love pretty much every character.
And I think there is something in that is a critique in itself as well, to be like, the Justice League are the most boring ones. Let's get to the interesting characters. Like, let's kill off the Justice League episode 1, which is obviously the inciting incident, but then we get to the interesting people. But even that Justice League, that wasn't bad as well, but they are less interesting than everyone else. Yeah, like Monster Girl. Is it Monster Girl?
I thought it was Monster Girl.
Monster Girl.
Because she used to be Monster Woman, but then she got too young.
Right. That idea, that the world building and premise alone of like, I turn into a monster and then I get younger every time I use my power. What a terrific conflict. Like, if you actually put that in the Marvel or DC universe, I would read that issue to issue, because that is a really fascinating dynamic.
Yeah, she even says it herself. Like, I'm the only one making actual sacrifices when we practice, when we actually go out and fight, because I'm losing a week of my life every time.
Yeah.
And I get the impression if she doesn't lose her powers, she'll age back up. But they're not, like, she doesn't get that chance. The world needs saving. she needs to do it. Like, that's an internal struggle. Oh my God. So interesting.
And that alone, I think, says a lot to the brilliance of the writing. Around characters like Monster Girl, I have those type of world building questions that I want to read more about her to learn. So like you just brought up the idea, well, when you're a kid, if you don't use your powers, do you age forward normally? Like if you don't use your powers for several years, can you catch up and then like be an adult again? But the fact that we want to know that, and it's not a plot hole, it's not the type of thing where we would normally talk about and be like, well, what the fuck is going on here? Are you aging up during regular time? It is just something where I'm like, I want to know more about you. That is wonderful world building.
And similarly, I agree. She's so fleshed out. Similarly, I want to know more about Black Samson. They just keep talking about, like, he used to be a guardian, he lost his powers, now he's got a suit. And I'm like, you're such a rich history happening with so many of these characters. And, like, yeah, I do feel like I missed an issue, but not in a bad way. I'm like, oh, I bet there's a spin-off issue about Black Samson explaining, like, what happened to him here and how he lost his powers. And it's very interesting that he's like, I should be the leader. I used to be a guardian, but now you're just a regular dude. Yeah, all the side characters, so interesting. I could watch the clones who don't know who the clone is all day.
They're brilliant as well.
They're so funny. It's such a great concept that when you put your mind in a clone, of course the clone thinks it's the original, and you have no proof you're not.
And one thing that the show does brilliantly, like the clone thing, they've got terrific writing, terrific banter. They have some of like the quippiest and snappiest stuff back and forth. Anytime a song plays for them, it's Run the Jewels. Like they have a theme. They have a motif musically in this show. And they're like an 8th tier character. But there's shit like that this show does where because everyone is kind of in their own little worlds, which I think with the exception of Mark being oblivious to the plot, being our main character, everyone existing in their own little worlds, I think really works and is a fun like bubble way to do this parody of DC and Marvel. To be like, look how many tones and styles are happening within one universe. But I like that like the rest of the show doesn't have rap music as its theme song. These specific 2 clone characters do. And it's so silly and weird and it's disjointed and it doesn't match the rest that they have modern day rap music as their motif. But that's cool. And I really like that. Like the Stone guy from this past episode, this like small city or big city, I guess, crime syndicate that he's trying to take over. Like that's its own tone and style and thing. And I really like how the show does that.
Yeah, it is a show that even though sometimes the tone does feel off, it's lovingly crafted.
Yes.
Like every story is really thought out. Like the 3 alien invasion was very much like a Fantastic Four kind of episode vibe. The Titan episode felt very like Luke Cage. So yeah, each episode is kind of a different tone in an interesting way in some ways. Like in some ways I don't think it quite works, but like, and then you break off into like if Hellboy was a detective. Like there's so much interesting stuff here.
Hellboy detective, I love. I want his own show.
Yeah, I would like a show about pretty much every side character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would watch the Teen Team show. I would watch the Hellboy show.
Because he's like Hellboy Constantine rolled into one.
Ooh, that's what he is.
He's not quite Hellboy, but he's a Hellboy Constantine. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, I don't know if Hellboy. I don't know.
You know what this
show? Detectives very much, but fair.
Fair, but you know what this show is? This show is just oops all crunchberries. Like they took, but in parodying all of these characters, they're like, let's make it all the hits in terms of like character beats, styles, personalities. They're like, you don't need Hellboy and Constantine. We crossed that over. That's one character now. Like this type of shit where they're just like all banger. Just crunchberries. More crunchberries.
More. Yeah.
Like I love that speed and pace.
Yeah. Adam Eve feels like Miss Fantastic or Sue Storm and like Scarlet Witch melded together. Like, yeah, there's a lot going on here. And I think this is more compliments on the comic though, because I'm pretty sure all these characters are from the comics. To create an entire Marvel/DC gallery of heroes and villains, that's even when you're just mashing and parodying them for the most part, that's incredibly impressive when they're this interesting and this like fun.
Yeah, and never And never crossing that line into full mockery. Like when you talk about it being lovely done, it doesn't feel like it's like, hey, this character's Hellboy. Look at how fucking stupid Hellboy is. It's like, no, this character's kind of Hellboy Constantine. We fucking love Hellboy Constantine. Man, that's some great shit. This is how great that character is.
I love
with our own little tweak.
Yeah, I love Hellboy, but I'd like him to be more of a detective, and I'm gonna give the angry parts to Rexplode, and that's Gambit. Gambit, if he had Hellboy's personality, they just kind of threw personalities and powers into like a tourney ball machine, and
the bingo machine or the lottery,
the bingo tourney ball machine. They're like, let's pull them out and put them together, and we'll see what we get. And it was all gold.
It's all gold because, it was done lovingly. Mm-hmm. Lovingly is the best word to describe it.
It is. And I feel weird saying that when I only like a show and don't love it. But I feel like I'm coming more towards your way of like, it's lovingly done and it's really well done. I just don't super enjoy watching it most of the time.
Yeah, like talking about these positives right now, I'm sincerely lighting up talking about it because it's wonderful. And maybe if I don't finish watching this season and like 5 years from now, if this type of thing hasn't been remade and done again, I would go back and watch this and it would be fresh enough or enough time has passed since I've seen, read, or listened to a what if Superman but bad story. Maybe if I get enough of a buffer in between, then I'd be kind of hungry for this.
What if I just watch the next 3 and I tell you what happens and then we can have a fun and then this thing and then this thing?
I'm 100% on board with that.
I think that could be a good time.
Yeah. And the other thing that I really like about the show, and this might go back to what you said a moment ago, that a lot of the compliments we're giving the show might actually be compliments for the comic book.
Feels that way.
And I know that these things are interconnected and go hand in hand, but I really like the visual style of this and the color scheme. Invincible in particular, the superhero costume, like yellow, blue, and black, it sounds like a nasty color combination, but it really works on him. And then the palette of the whole show and these colors and tones, it really alternates between dark and gritty and bright and vibrant and playful at the same time. It is actually one of the rare examples I can think of where these types of universes, for some reason, are always 90% DC. Like, there's definitely Marvel influences in this show, but whether it's this or The Tick or The Boys or Watchmen, which originally was intended to be, but it's always 90% DC. There is a Batman, there is a Superman, it's 90%
There's a Wonder
DC.
Woman.
And because of that, it normally looks like DC. It looks like DC Comics or it looks like the DC Universe. And even though these characters are DC inspired, it has the color palette and tone of Marvel. Like, it reminds me of Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes. Like, it's the type of animation, color, and style and vibrancy of a Marvel thing. And I really love that.
I get what you're saying color-wise. Yes, it definitely has more Marvel color than DC color, but then not even quite Marvel. It's like we have big bright colors, but they're also just a little bit faded, but not in a way that's gloomy, just in a way so that it won't hurt your eyes, but you'll still be like, ooh, this is fun to watch, and it all pops. Totally agree that Invincible's costume on paper doesn't seem like it should work.
Yeah.
But it's great.
Yeah, and I don't know why. It's
all about the exact proportions, maybe? I just have no idea.
It's definitely going to be one of those things where an artist out there has a TikTok about it, where they're like, here's the mathematical reason why this is appealing to the human eye.
I got a color wheel. I got a how to draw book. We're gonna go on a journey in 90 seconds on TikTok.
Yeah, there's definitely one of those science breakdowns as to here's why this looks good. But I do wonder why it is always DC though. You'll get a handful of this character's a Marvel. But let's face it, these are always DC parodies or satirizations or homages.
I am not surprised by that at all. Because
why is that?
I feel like we have gotten used to the Marvel Universe being the bigger of the two. But DC has been the more consistent and more notable comic book universes for decades. I mean, Iron Man and Captain America barely made it into Marvel versus DC. If you read comics, you know who all the Marvel characters are. But think about how many Batman movies we got, how many Superman movies we got early on. Batman's been around since 1966 or not before that, but the show Batman.
Right.
So we've been taking in Batman and Superman visually, and even Wonder Woman to an extent, because she had a TV show. But what were early Marvel shows? Just the Hulk?
Yeah, but if we're talking about like the writing of this as a property was a comic, though. And I would say that even though DC definitely for decades dominated multimedia, I would say that Marvel was still very strong as a comic book.
I mean, they almost went bankrupt in the 90s. They plummeted for
That
a
is
bit.
due to some poor business decisions.
Okay,
That's a
your
complicated
business,
thing.
It is. But yeah, I would still say you want to go for the big market. If you're like, I want my book to appeal to as many people as possible, you're going to go for the giants, which until about 2008 when Iron Man popped off was all the DC characters.
Okay, fair enough.
So I'm going to say I'm not surprised. Even like Justice League animated, Batman animated, Superman animated, all before there was any hit Marvel shows, except for maybe X-Men.
But again, we're talking
X-Men.
about multimedia now, and not like the comics that would inspire. You know, like when Watchmen is being written, even though that was, I guess, a DC pitch.
Yeah, that was based on DC characters,
for,
so I don't know if you
specifically
can
for
count that
DC
one.
things. Yeah, I don't know when The Boys was written, but
I think around the early 2000s.
I think that might have been an early 2000s thing.
Yeah, it's it doesn't surprise me as much, and I think the Avengers also didn't have as clear a core as the Justice League has, because the Avengers I think change.
It's more of a rotating.
Frequently, yeah. Sometimes it's Wolverine, sometimes it's Spider-Man, sometimes it's Captain Marvel, and I think the Justice League is always Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash. Like it's pretty constantly those four.
Fair enough.
That might be part of it.
See, I think the big part of it is just that Superman's busted.
Superman is busted. Marvel doesn't have that.
Yes, yeah. Marvel has god tier characters for sure, but Superman just inherently of like a dude who's like, I work at the newspaper, and he is the most busted, powerful being. That balance is very tricky to write. And the writers who write Superman well write him phenomenally, and the writers who write him bad, it's just an idiot. It's a goof. It is the most mockable, satirical type of thing that you could easily take a target at. And I think way more so than like Spider-Man or Iron Man, which I think naturally are more like self-aware type of characters that you get from Marvel, where it's like, how do you make fun of a rich drunk? Like Iron Man's already kind of sending up a rich drunk to a certain degree. So I think Superman is specifically the Agent X catalyst that everyone's like, we've got to make fun of this fuck.
I think I can get behind that because he's so moral, but he's also an alien. And he's also so much more powerful than everyone. Like, there's never a doubt that Superman's the strongest person in DC. But you can argue, like, is it Hulk? Is it Thor? Is it Captain Marvel? Like, there are debates in Marvel about who the strongest is. But when you jump over to DC, it's like, it's Superman.
It doesn't
even matter.
It doesn't make any fucking sense.
It doesn't even matter that Supergirl is the exact same. Everyone's like, it's Superman.
Right.
There's no doubt in anyone's mind. So he's the guy you got to take down. So he's the guy you got to parody. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think Superman might be He's
busted.
And maybe just Batman's incredible depth of appeal. Like he's been everywhere for all of time.
Right.
So.
But yeah, so many Superman is broken stories.
There's a fair amount.
Brightburn, Irredeemable, The Boys, and Invincible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we didn't need one more of these.
Right?
I do like that his name, that Omni-Man. I don't like this maybe, but I find it weird that in a comic where everyone's names are so interesting, I'm like, man, Omni-Man, your name's boring.
It is boring, and I actually really like how boring it is, because it feels like it is meant to be a mockery of, like, you just gave one dude every power, huh?
Oh, we can do all of it. Uh-huh.
I feel like it is a point-blank pointing a gun at Superman and saying, this was the dumbest character writing for abilities. You gave one dude he's just the Omni-Man.
Yeah, because everyone else only gets one.
Yeah.
Nobody else gets more than one power. Maybe people get consequences of their powers, like Monster Girl.
Sure.
But she only has one power. She turns into a monster.
Or like two powers is like a modifier of one another or something. But yeah, you don't get all. I like Omni-Man as a like, this is fucking absurd. I like that as a name that points out the ridiculousness of giving one person everything.
Maybe what I don't like about it is that they never point out it's ridiculous, which this show does a lot. Like, even in the last episode, there's a villain who's like just got like tubes coming out of his stomach, and it's kind of very silly, but it's not treated silly at all.
Right.
And I feel like some of the silly things could be treated a little sillier to have a little bit more fun.
Yeah, like no one's like, that's gross. Like no one says that when the guy's got tentacles or his intestines coming out and they're stretchy.
No Spider-Man quips.
Yeah.
Which is like, or you need someone who's dumb, or you just need something going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think the closest we got was this episode when Invincible saw like Machine Head and Isotope was like, which one's Machine Head?
That was
funny.
That was funny.
And I would love more of that.
And I think it is just lack of punch-up writing and joke writing for Mark Invincible's character. Because Stephen Yeun is doing a phenomenal performance. And when he has those lines, like the which one is Machine Head, he is nailing it. He is delivering it, and it feels Spider-Man quippy. It's just that the writing of those little joke pieces are too few and far between.
Stephen Yeun could be crushing this so hard if they wrote him some better jokes. Because also a joke that made me laugh for like 2 minutes straight was, think of all the rice you'll separate. Which was like this throwaway line that was so funny. And it wasn't about being a hero. It was just some like fun banter with his girlfriend. I'm like, please make him like this more often. Because then when he finds out about his dad, if he's been so upbeat, he'd have so much farther to fall.
Yeah.
When we get to like, I assume the dramatic reveal we are building to, I don't assume will end and he just won't find out unless that's going to be the parallel the entire series and he never finds out and just lives in this weird bubble. But yeah, I'd love Stephen Yeun to do more.
And I feel like part of the issue with why he doesn't feel punchier, snappier, or wittier as well is some of it is the pacing of this show. And I don't think this show should be 45 minutes an episode.
Should be half an hour.
It is a really stupid decision that this is 45 minutes an episode. And I think it is yet another one of the pitfalls of... Because it doesn't seem structured like it's an hour edited to 45. Because like your hour TV show with commercials is around 43, 45 minutes. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like a 30-minute show that they didn't edit anything out of or try to tighten up. It does feel like it's falling victim to that streaming service thing where, oh, well, if there's no commercials, that doesn't mean that means we don't need to tighten up our scripts or do any editing or cut any scenes or write any punch up or make things snappier. And it's just, I'm tired of seeing that instinct on streaming services.
We can just never edit anything out. I'm like, no, not everything is the goddamn Snyder Cut. We're not doing 4 hours of everything. It's
tight 30. This should be a tight 30.
It goes way back to, I don't know if we've brought up this before, but the first season of Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix.
Right. Yes.
This is the perfect example. So the first season of Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix was supposed to air on NBC?
NBC. It was an NBC show.
It was NBC. It was filmed for regular television with commercials. And it was a tight 22 minutes per episode. And it was by far their best season. Because every other season was written for Netflix with no act breaks and was
like
about 33 minutes long.
Ish.
Every episode could have been cut 10 minutes shorter and would have been an incredible show back to front. But now they have this show where season 1 is phenomenal and it's tight and it's edited to hell in a good way. And it's just joke. And then every other season they were like, just leave it in. There's no time limits. It's Netflix.
Let's let them play. Let's let them improv. And I get that instinct. Sometimes gold comes out of that. But if you want to use... If you have phenomenal performers and you want to like use their improv or you want to use like an extra page that a writer wrote, you've got to trade it off. Is it valuable enough that it's worth cutting something else? And that choice is what makes scripts and storytelling tighter.
There's a reason TV's built that way because it works. And you don't even have to watch it with commercials. Like when I watch television shows on Netflix that were made for TV, they're just better. They're tighter. There's less filler. They had to do it this way. So yeah, these stories aren't full enough that you need this much time.
No.
Like there's not a lot of things that I'm like, oh, this is dragged out, but I'm also like, we didn't need this. We don't need another fight with the Guardians about who's going to be the leader. Okay. Another long scene with the guys who clone themselves just building their fort.
Yeah, just a whole scene where they build stuff.
Just a 2-minute scene of them making the lair, and I'm like, you could have just cut to lair. Let's be real. I'd understand if he just had a lair somewhere ready to go. So yeah, you can be 30 minutes, 23.
Easily, it could be 30 minutes. Maybe 23 would be tough, but you at least get it down to 30.
It could be 23 and like 3 more episodes long as a season.
I could see that. And that brings me to another concern as well for the show.
Only 8 episodes.
Only 8 episodes. We've now watched 5, which and it's nowhere near winding down or reaching a satisfactory conclusion. And I get that this is going to be the type of story that they want to keep telling over several seasons. But you still need to close an arc in some regard, and it doesn't feel like we're heading towards that. And it does feel like very traditional comic book storytelling to be like, well, we're going to finish these issues, and then we just keep going, and you've got to keep coming and keep coming. But if you don't have an endless turnout like comics, that's not fun.
Yeah, because Mark has no idea yet that his dad's done anything wrong. Not an inkling. And other than killing the fake Justice League, I don't even get an impression that his dad's planning anything else. Like, it's not like he's like running around behind their back and doing other stuff. It really seems like he just wanted to kill the Guardians of the Globe. So there's, 3-hour-long episodes is enough to do more stuff. But if they're going to be also full of these side plots where they just go on an adventure every time, it's not enough time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think this will be like a cliffhanger at the very end of the season. Mark finds out his dad killed the Guardians, and I'll be like, ugh, all this for that?
Yeah.
It's not enough time.
No, not enough time to be somewhere satisfactory.
It's too much time, and it's not enough time at the same time.
It wasn't beated out properly as a seasonal arc. And I think that is one problem where, as much as comic books lend itself very well to televised and weekly storytelling, better, I think, than film. Comics lend themselves to TV and serialized storytelling like that better. But TV takes like half of the year off, and comic books don't. Comic book, like, there's no one's just like, yeah, you know how from June until February of next year there's no comics? It just doesn't happen like that. So you do need to change how you're adapting your story to create something satisfactory enough that it feels like your time was worth it, and to remind you of that feeling when it comes back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unless your comic was, a mini series that had a definitive ending like Watchmen or something, then yeah, your heroes just keep heroing. But on TV, you need an arc, you need a season finale, you need a mid-season finale if it's going to be even 13 episodes.
Yeah.
And comics don't do that. Every month, they want you to buy as many comics as you bought the month
before.
Exactly.
So they could possibly go, here's the Rexplode issue. Which I would love, but like there's gonna be a lot of that going on. And there's a lot to love, but it's just something I'm not vibing with in a few different regards. Yeah. How you feeling? You feeling good on Invincible?
I'm feeling like pretty good on Invincible. I feel like...
Any final thoughts?
I feel like we've been a little harsh because it is good.
Yeah.
But like the positives I think are so quick to go over. Just like it's cute a lot of the times, and it's very clever from the comics. Everything that we've taken. Mm-hmm. And Mark is boring, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You don't make any sense to me. Like, you don't have any goals, any conflicts. You said you wanted to be a hero your whole life, but you didn't have a name or a costume picked out. Like, he just doesn't make any sense, but not in a way that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Like, the dad doesn't make sense, but I'm like, ooh, what's going on?
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's your deal? But the son is just this clay that is just anything you need him to be at the current moments. And that makes me sad because I want to root for this show because, like you said, it looks great. It's made lovingly. Yeah. I'd love to love it.
Well performed, well drawn, well put together, just everything.
Every single cast member is a banger.
Perfect craftsmanship from top to bottom, and it just doesn't spark that X factor of joy or prestige.
I'd love to be sparked.
Yeah, there's no sparks.
I'm dying to be sparked here, and I'm just a wet piece of wood.
Well,
will not be lit aflame.
Well, let's see if we can find the spark. Let's go in and ask the final question of what would you change? So now that we've discussed everything that we've discussed, what would you change about the show if you could change anything? But before we do ask that final question, don't you skip ahead if you haven't done this. I know you've heard us do it before. You've heard other podcasts do it. But if you haven't done it, you got to listen to us tell you to do it.
Sit your butt down. Don't touch those dials.
And what you got to do is free things to support the podcast, like following, subscribing, rating, reviewing, share it with your friends. You don't have to do it in that order. You don't even have to do all of those things. But you got to do something for the love of God.
Gotta do one of the things.
For
You
the
gotta
love of
rate, you
God.
gotta review, or you gotta share.
I'm grabbing you by your collar and shaking you right now and saying, for the love of God, you got to do one of the things.
You can't believe the look in his eyes, you guys.
I'm
The
panicked.
tears.
They're rolling down my cheek.
He's begging you.
When we give you the options to financially support it, I'm like, if you got it.
of
The
course.
financial stuff, it's like, if you got it. You take care of you. Then if you got something for us, fuck, it means a lot. You're wonderful. But for the free stuff, I'm shaking you. I'm shaking you. Your cheeks are flapping in the wind. I'm shaking you.
We know you have internet.
We know that you have
If you're listening to this,
You haven't.
got internet.
So all you got to do to support the podcast is if you are listening to this through your browser or through the FromSuperheroes.com website, I appreciate you listening. Try a podcast app and hit follow or subscribe or whatever. If you're already using a podcast app, be sure to hit follow or subscribe if you happen to find another way here. And then as well, rate and review. Give us a rating. Give us a review. All of those things, they help us impress the algorithm of these podcatcher apps. And then we are shown and recommended to more people. And more people are more likely to hit download and actually get new listeners on this.
I just had a mental image of us walking into like a ballroom and like iTunes is there and they're like, who are you? And we're like, our reviews are our resume. And we're like, we'd like a job, please.
Look at this. And they're like, oh, hello. Look,
hello. We need more on our resume.
that is kind of what it's like. All right. So do that. It's a free way to support the podcast. And then tell your friends. Share this on social media. Great way to get the word out about the podcast. Those are the free ways. Imagine that I stopped shaking you now. Now I'm done shaking you.
You are at rest.
You are at rest, and now I am saying to you as a friend with no shaking whatsoever that if you do want to support the podcast monetarily, you can do that over on Patreon.
What a wide tonal shift.
Wide tonal
You're
shift.
shaking a person, you
Yeah.
put them down like, what if you have a dollar?
They've calmed down. They've come to their senses. They left the review. Now I'm like, and by the way, if you want extra episodes of the podcast, check us out on Patreon. You kick in a little, you get some bonuses. Over on patreon.com/FromSuperheroes, you can give as little as $1 a month, as much as you can afford. No matter what you kick in, you get different bonuses. But at the $10 a month level, you can get a bonus episode of this podcast every single month that's exclusive for our Patreon members. And when you sign up at that level, you get immediate access to the back catalog. You can sign up monthly. You can sign up for the yearly. You can also, if you sign up for the monthly, you can cancel or change your subscription level at any given time. If you sign up for the yearly, you get 1 month free by doing it all in advance. It's whatever works for you. There's options, and there's plenty of bonuses.
There's plenty of stuff. There's great stuff on there. You get access to all the old episodes if you go at the $10 level. So lots more talk from superheroes. We should maybe add a level which is Andrew doesn't shake you by the lapels anymore. No, we're keeping. Okay, not an option. I guess
you get that, unlock that level by your actions in life. All right, that's what you do.
Gotta to unlock your own no lapel shaking. You must leave the review, but you do not have to donate to the Patreon. But
No,
if it's
but
in
we
the budget, we'd love it if you did.
We love it. It really does help us keep the lights on and keep the network going, and you get bonuses. So check it out, patreon.com/FromSuperheroes. That's patreon.com/FromSuperheroes. And now, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change. Diana, what would you change about this?
I would make Mark more interesting because I do think that is the thing holding me back from liking this. I don't love that it's bleak, but I can live with that. Like, I find it entertaining. It's not really bringing me down super hard. So if Mark was a little bit snappier like Spider-Man, a little bit more hopeful, and had some obstacles in his path, like I think what would be so interesting is if it seems like his dad has no human life. He doesn't have a job. His identity is hidden, but he doesn't interact with humanity except for his family. He really has chosen, like, I'm a hero and that's it. I would really like if Mark had to do that. If he was either, you have to be a hero and you can't have a girlfriend, you can't go to school, you can't have a job, or you can have those things, but you can't be a hero. Like, I think that would be kind of an interesting, if that was the training he was getting from his dad. I think that could be like an actual moral conflict and something that he has to struggle with of like choosing to save people or not. It's like kind of an all or nothing world where the heroes are heroes and the humans are humans. Might be interesting. And yeah, just make him a little bit quippier, put a few challenges in his way, have him confront some stuff in an interesting way. And then I think I actually like would quite enjoy the show if he just felt more integrated and fleshed out like every side character. So not much of a change.
Interesting.
For me this week. Andrew, what would you change?
I would like to not see Omni-Man if Mark isn't there. I want Invincible. I want Mark to be the POV character for this show. And I get that in episode 1, the murder of the Guardians of the Globe is the big inciting incident. But if this story was told from Mark's perspective, and it is a guy being raised by Superman, someone who, from Mark's perspective, is that pure, that good, that kind, and like that perfect. And then the show would be a little less gritty and bleak if it was just then a sad moment where your dad barely survived an attack on the Guardians and the Justice League is dead. And your dad's the only one who's left alive. And then throughout the show, as this information kind of trickles in, we could still get these scenes with the Hellboy type detective, Detective Darkblood or whatever he's called, Demon Darkblood. And like casting these seeds of doubt in the family, and us as an audience then going on that journey of like, holy shit, is this father who he seems? I think it would make us relate to Mark a lot more, and it would make the betrayal when Mark inevitably finds out be a lot more impactful, because right now I don't think it'll be for a little bit, but if next episode Mark walks in on his dad murdering a room full of people brutally, and he has this like emotional breakdown and starts crying, as an audience member, I'll just be like, yeah, I know. I'm not connected to their relationship, but if that felt like a sincere betrayal, if they had built up this like the father training him scenes, maybe slightly going over the line, causing some questions and concerns, I really want Mark to be our character when we watch this show. And instead he's just a character.
Yeah, like he feels like a guy we're keeping something from. And then you feel kind of bad about it, but you're also like, you idiot, of course he killed the Justice League. We saw that in episode 1. Yeah, I like that. I can get behind that. I feel like it's very much against the structure and like the story they want to tell. But I think your version is the 23-minute version of Invincible per episode, and that which is much more watchable. And yeah, and then it can be bleak, but not until the end.
Yeah, and
every week can be fun until we get there.
And it can be bleak with this like implied bleakness, as much as everyone kind of wants to turn their nose up at like PG-13 violence. There is a way where that's actually more impactful. And if instead of seeing the brutally violent ways that Omni-Man killed all of the Guardians of the Globe, if they just showed that room and our brain had to fill it in to be like, how did one person get their spleen ripped out? Why is one person frozen? Why is another person got their skull crushed? Like, it would still be very horrifying images, but it would be the PG-13 version of that. And letting your mind do the work would be scarier, and I think take us on like a mysterious journey. Because this show still very much is about the mystery of why. Why? And if we didn't see it, it would be less violent and bleak, but we would still want to know why.
Yeah, I love that. And it would really help the mystery, because I think if I just saw a room full of dead heroes, I wouldn't think, oh, one person did this. Because they were all killed in very different ways as well. I love that. Yeah, that's very interesting. And it makes it more fun. Still a good mystery. You can still be violent. Still holds. You still have all these fun side characters.
I think we fixed it.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't think I'm going to finish watching this.
I think if they were half hours, we would.
Oh, if they were half hours, I undoubtedly would finish watching
this.
But
it's like you gotta so much time.
You gotta draw the line at some point.
Sit down for so long.
There's only so many hours in the day, and I think that's gonna do it for Invincible. And next week on the podcast, yeah, there's only so many hours in the day to watch Invincible because we've got to watch other TV shows and movies for this podcast. Like next week on the podcast, we're building up to the release of the new Mortal Kombat. So we're doing another video game movie. We put it out on a Twitter poll to see what people wanted to see, and y'all chose it. We've never seen it before. It is Warcraft.
We haven't seen it. For the record, we already covered the original Mortal Kombat, which is why we can't do that.
You can go back and check that out. Search for our Mortal Kombat one. It's a banger.
Available right now, and it's real fun.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. And I'm very excited, question mark, to see Warcraft.
I am very goddamn curious for this movie that just kind of came and disappeared.
Based on like the biggest video game ever.
Yeah.
Did you play Warcraft?
Only a tiny bit.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see. Not enough that I'll have any insider references.
Mana?
No.
No, it's not a mana one?
I don't believe. No. Now there is magic, but I don't recall mana.
Oh, because one of my old boyfriends played it, and I thought there was mana.
Maybe there's mana. There's
Okay.
always some version of mana.
Right? We'll find the mana.
We'll figure it out next week. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach me on Twitter at Ivimey, Ivimey.
You can check me out at Words of Diana.
And you can reach both of us at From Superheroes, and we'll see y'all next week.
Bye.